Get them fired up and get them to the staging lanes, baby, because 8th Mile Apparel is now carrying Glowing Bracket Racing merch. Hats, t-shirts, hoodies, and much more can be yours today by visiting 8thmileapparel.com. We appreciate each and every one of you guys supporting the Glowing Bracket Racing YouTube and Facebook pages.
What's up, everybody? Casey and George here on September 30th, 2025, episode 209 of the Glowing Bracket Racing Live podcast, coming at you every single week for free on YouTube, Facebook, comes out on Spotify, comes out on Apple Podcasts. We can go on, but I think you get the point. But we always got to thank the people that bring this to you for free every single week, one of them being TSR Racing Products for your Power Glides, Turbo 350s, 400, 727 transmissions. They got them a new Facebook page. Go over there and hit the like, follow, share button over there. Help them all out and get that thing up and running real quick. BRG 3D printed parts, anything you need, Brian Garrett will print that stuff up for you out of high-density polymers and plastics, any kind of custom parts you got. Anything that wasn't supposed to be on your car, technically nothing's supposed to be on that car. Don't forget about it. So that ways you can come up with some kind of fancy thing and he can make it look nice for you and actually be light too. You don't have to make it out of all that steel that heavies you down or weights you down, whatever you want to say. Syntex Printing out there in Temple, Texas, sticker shirts, brochures, etc. Go out there to Syntex Printing and get that stuff ready. It's about that time of year for all those trade shows. I know you need a lot of stuff for your business. Go and get it. Driven Racing Oil. Use code GBR10. Get yourself some oil for your engine, your transmission, your rear end for your man, what am I talking about? Truck you tow with. Get some oil for that. Get some rear end oil. Get some transmission fluid. Get some cleaning products. Clean your stuff up. Stop letting everything look like a big piece of crap over there. GBR10. Get you 10% off your order on everything on their website. Proform Parts. Visit proformparts.com for your shop tools, carburetors, starters, alternators, radiators, accessories, all kinds of stuff. Proformparts.com is the place to go for that. Crew Chief Pro software. If you can't figure out your dial in, Don over there at Crew Chief Pro's got you figured out. crewchiefpro.com. Get you some of that Crew Chief Pro and figure out what you're supposed to run. Gearhead Solutions. Let me tell you, Gearhead's a place to go. Got access to 1,000 vendors. Get the parts when you need them. Gearheadsolutions.com. I think Trevor's coming out here for that door car fling race. Told me he's bringing an entire motor and transmission with him. Hopefully we don't have to put that thing in that car out there. But if he needs some extra parts, I know who he's going to call. He's going to call directly to the manufacturers and get it coming. Mid-State Dragway, Havana, Illinois, October 10th through 12th is the place to be there. Last time it was packed. They got the twin 10s. That's always out there. But you'll notice on that flyer behind me, it's actually a 20 and then a 10 the next day. And all the prices are the same, man. Double enter the entire weekend for $500. They got no box bonus. They got round money. They got all kinds of stuff going on up there. But I'm telling you right now, Havana's the place to be. I guess 2 weeks from now, maybe. Looking at the date over here. What more do you want? George, what you been up to, man? It's just been raining at my house.
Yeah, not too much rain going on here. I'm cool with that, man. As always, I got that mid-state flyer showing while you're talking about mid-state. Get in where you fit in, guys. You better come prepared, though, because there's a lot of good racers out in that area. So, especially with the $20,000 and a $10,000 race going on. Our guest, I believe, has made his way up to mid-state right before the OG Million. We'll get off into that here in just a little bit as we continue on with the show. But another race coming up out here in the Texas area at XRP, the Pennington Bros Superbucks Showdown. This would be the fall edition of this race. 5,000 to warm up on Thursday, 20,000 on Saturday and Friday and Saturday with some no box funds going on. It's gonna be a little bit of duck racing going on. Some junior dragsters out there. Get in where you fit in, guys. Once again, this will be streamed live on Glowing Bracket Racing the whole entire weekend. And looking forward to this race as any Superbucks race that we attend. And last but not least, let's head out there to West Texas for the PDQ Metal and Recycling West Texas Halloween Shootout. CP Racing Promotion bringing that to us. You know how CP does it: fives, tens. This one is tens on I believe it's on Saturday and Sunday. You get your tens, and Friday will warm up. Off the bottom, I do believe it's 3,000 and 5,000. Pay attention to the flyer right there on the screen. But also going to be streamed live on Going Bracket Racing. We will be heading out that way to West Texas. I've never been there. Never been to Odessa. Looks like it's going to be a first time for everything. But as we continue and get off into today's episode, number 209, I believe Casey said, got a guest. And this is not going to be the easiest guest to call his name because both of them just so happen to have the initials C and B. I got Casey Beckmeyer on this screen, and I got Casey Baugh on that screen. Welcome to the show, Casey Baugh.
What's up, fellas?
Hey, man, not much. I'm just going to call you Baugh's Out Racing. That's what I'm going to call you.
That'll work.
Yeah, buddy. Hey, welcome to the show. Thanks for taking time out of your day, man, and coming to sit down with us and talk about what we all love doing in the first place. As always here, we start this show off with a guest on how. First question, how did you get into bracket racing?
Man, I'm a multi-generational motorcycle bracket racer. So my father, my uncle, my brothers, myself, men that are pretty much in my family because of drag racing, bracket racing motorcycles that I consider my uncles too. So used to chase them around in pretty much every track around Texas, chase them around the staging lanes on foot, and that's how I got into it. And I just eventually got to the point where I was old enough and adulted enough where I could start my own program and chase it myself. So,
and I want to build off that a little bit, man. The number one, a lot of the bike guys end up being heads up guys. Lots of bikes. Probably 90% of them, at least, maybe 95%. They're grudge guys or they're heads up deals. So how did you guys end up sticking around with the motorcycle bracket racing side of the program? Because it doesn't really seem like there's a lot of options for that anymore.
No. So what I've always remembered, just kind of looking back was, a lot of the older guys that I consider family, it was Little River always had a great bracket program, and there were always a ton of motorcycles there. Texas Raceway, obviously Motorplex, they had the Texas Shootout Series, just a bunch of them, and then obviously NHRA divisionals, things like that, that there was actually a mass of motorcycles back in the day. It has dwindled dramatically, to say the least. Actually, most of the people that I race with on two wheels are the same people that I grew up watching race. I always say, and we all kind of laugh about it pretty regularly, that one day, I'm going to wake up and go to the racetrack, me and some of the young guns like Vince McCullough, Corey Ellie, stuff like that. All of our idols, all the guys we chased, they're going to be done with it. They're going to be, Paul Holman, David Ball, my uncle, Mike Matthews, Big Shug, Tony Davis, all of them, and I pray that day doesn't come anytime soon. But, it's like that's the bulk of who you see is who's been doing it for 20 plus, 30, even 30 plus years. And they're still around making, the motorcycle scene still relevant.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting too. Casey and I grew up around, Bob Lohr and a few other of those kind of big name motorcycle pro bike, what they used to call it back in the day, and Charles Willis and all those other guys being on motorcycles as well. But it's interesting to hear that it seems as if once on motorcycle, almost always on motorcycle is what I just heard you say, Casey. Am I right?
Yep. Even despite all the frustrations, man, a bunch of diehards on two wheels, and got to respect them for it, man. It's definitely a tough world, especially nowadays, to compete in. But once you're bit by the bug, and this is something that my father preached to me and my uncle preached to me for years. Like once you do it once, getting away from it is slim to none chance, and it's very tough to do so.
How long do guys keep racing on bikes? Like, for example, it's, as far as, normal racing, guys, I feel like once they start getting around 70 is when they start quitting. Every once in a while, you'll see a guy in his 70s racing. It gets hard to get in and out of the cars. I'm sure bikes, there's a lot more going on. You got to hang on to everything, and your hands got to work. Like, that's a thing people don't think about, is that your hands got to work really good because you're holding yourself on there whenever you're going 120, 130 mile an hour, whatever you're going.
Yeah, I think that they last longer, as far as maybe, years go. I mean, I know some guys in the mid 70s like Don Promitz. That's the Little River King, man. He's been on two wheels forever. I remember as a kid him riding an old GS Willie Bar bike that, he was just putting out dragsters left and right. He's mid 70s and he's headed to the world this year for IHRA on two wheels, man. And he still has that same motorcycle,
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, these guys get up there in age and it still can be done, but I think it's the frequency, right? So they're not, going to double. They may not make 3 or 4 day races, but they're definitely going to do their best to be a weekend warrior and be there on a Saturday or Sunday bracket program and still, try to earn some points and be able to go to team finals.
What's, you said whenever we were just opening this show, you said when you got to the point that you could afford your own racing program and stuff. And I think that's something that's definitely slept upon, and I don't really know. You can correct me if I'm wrong, obviously, but I have to imagine that starting a motorcycle racing program is significantly less expensive because you don't necessarily need a trailer. You could do it with a truck. You could do it with an older street bike. Is that something that a lot of people just haven't thought about for a few years?
Yeah, and it really depends, how competitive do you want to be? How involved in this do you want to be? And what are you looking for? To say the least, what I grew up around was an open trailer, brother. We were taking two bikes on a 12-foot open trailer, and we were showing up, and it was the least expensive operation, making the most money whenever we cash checks, and I still value that. I still race that way, and so the deal is I never ran juniors. I never did anything like that, but I rode motorcycles on the street. Whenever I had a street bike, I'd go to Little River, I'd go to Red Line, do whatever and make some passes, but I never competed. Really, it was mostly just test and tune stuff. But in order for someone to get on two wheels and go, you can go get, my motorcycles are not far off from what they come off the showroom floor as. And you can go and get a 580, 590 showroom floor motorcycle right now and go race. It's not going to come easy, but you can go do that. And yeah, you can throw it in the bed of the truck, or you can throw it on an open trailer and go chase it locally. And then obviously once you're bit, man, you'll start sinking a little money into it, and it can get very expensive. I have friends, Jeremy England just built probably the second prettiest bike I've ever seen, because he built the first prettiest bike I ever seen and ended up having an accident. But this guy, I guarantee you, any given day, it's over $60,000 for what he has in that motorcycle, but there's not a flaw in it. It's incredible.
So what is the maintenance program like? And what are some of the things you would do? Like say people are listening right now and they have a street bike. So there's tons of, you can buy crotch rockets a dime a dozen, or at least you used to could. I don't know what their prices are. I haven't looked in a really long time, but back in the day you could buy them. There's still older bikes everywhere. I'm sure you could still find something for $500 or $1,000. What do you do? Say you get we'll just say one of the ones I used to have. I used to have let's say the very first crotch rocket I ever had, 03 600RR. What do you end up doing to that to actually say, okay, I'm seriously going to go race? What type of upgrades do you do to it to make this thing either more consistent, or I would say the main thing would be getting on the tree, things like that?
Yeah, ultimately, man, really what it comes down to is you want you want to make sure you have the right tire on there. That's a big deal as far as the rear tire. Chain maintenance is a big deal because that's your propulsion, right? And so you get an older machine, you need to update some parts, right? And but I mean, lower it, put some extensions on it if you can, do everything you can, because you know as well as I do, those short peppy bikes, they're gonna wheelie. So you basically do those things, and for somebody who's just starting or getting that point, maybe has some prior experience on the road, clutch maintenance is going to be a big deal. Whenever you're slipping that clutch, to make sure you leave the line and you're not on the back tire and all the above. That's really what it comes down to. And just frequent oil changes. My uncle always preaches to me. He's like, "Hey, dude, you made 3 days." And in my case, I like to double everything, and I'm trying to make rounds. So if I'm making 3 days of racing, I'm changing the oil and filter, and I'm checking the clutch stack. So.
Yeah, and I mean because with bikes, everything's all in there. If you got a Japanese bike, it's all in one spot. All the oil's in the same spot. So all that clutch material, all that stuff's going through everything. Yep,
that's transmission, clutch, engine oil, everything, all encased in one.
Yep. Pretty neat, man. Pretty neat. So let's talk about this subject. On 2 wheels, number one. Number two, I know there's not a delay box on that bike because you and I have spoke, and you race off the bottom. Is that a figment of that's just how motorcycles are set up, and that's how you grew up racing, or will you say that it's probably easier to put a box on the thing too?
So actually, locally, I'm one of the few that do it. Most everybody that I grew up watching and stuff like that, when the time came for that to be an addition to motorcycles, especially wheelie bar bikes, stuff like that, delay boxes are a thing. Was a thing and still are a thing. For me, it's a couple things, right? So, I have some, I don't want to call them idols, but I do have some people that I respect so much, and I have to give credit where credit is due. But, you have guys that race off the bottom, and those guys that race off the bottom, they run both classes, right? And so my thought process is like, well, if I don't put a delay box on this thing, I can race top and bottom and not have to worry about it. But if I, set up a delay box on this thing, locally, I can only go Saturday to the track and run Super Pro, and so I just wanted, every time I made, a trip to the track, I wanted to be able to have fun, make laps, constantly be racing and just better myself and all the above. And so, one of the guys that I really took to whenever I first started this about 7 years ago for myself was Jay Coward. This guy's, he's one of my greatest friends, and he's off the bottom, dude, and he's good at it. And so I know it can be done. Obviously the circumstances are a lot different on 2 wheels, but it was like, all right, if he can do it, I'm going to do it too. And many people like that, y'all know the Division 4, man. It's the Howards and Hefflers and Hamlins and Sandlins and Wallaces and Cervantes and Jones and Galettis and Nelsons. And I could go on and on, man. It's like,
Yep.
So
good sharpness itself. Go ahead.
How does a delay box even work on a bike? So obviously in a car, it's basically just hydraulically locking first and reverse together, and they're just fighting each other so it can't move. How does that work on a bike when you don't have reverse? I've always wondered that.
Yeah, so like my motorcycles are still hand clutch. They're the hand sliders, so they're basically set up just like OEM. But the deal is you just set them up so soft where they can slip a little bit, where it doesn't engage so hard. It's almost kind of like a loose converter, right? But it doesn't engage so hard that it can backflip you. And so the deal is my bikes are still on hydraulic hand clutch like normal, 6 gears. And you can do it 2 ways. You can set them up on air, where you've got like an air ram that whenever you engage the button, it closes the clutch for you, and set that up, on your switch and tie it into the delay box, and you can drop the button whenever that time comes. Or you can set it up. There's I don't want to say it's new, but there's a deal called a mallet magnet. And basically they set it up where you come in and you pull the clutch in, and once the clutch switch is activated, you can either use a button or use the clutch switch itself, and set it up to run off the delay box as well. So it magnetizes at the tip of the clutch on the handlebar so that you can basically utilize the delay box. So
interesting, man. I've always wondered that because obviously car guy, and I've had bikes, and I've just wondered how they even do that. But I mean, they've been doing it forever, so obviously it can be done. But
yeah, it's coming around too, man. They're obviously, as time goes on and as this becomes, it's growing as far as like motorcycle competitors, right? Maybe not necessarily motorcycle sportsmen, but like we talked about, that grudge stuff,
yeah,
what can I do to set up to be in index classes, things like that. And on the East Coast, there's huge organizations that have crazy high numbers and bike count. And so, thankfully for those, manufacturers and the diehards, they're producing stuff to be competitive for motorcycle racers. So
I'm kind of surprised. And I think that, I mean, regardless if you know this or not, I mean, obviously what you've been doing in the last couple years has been very, out in the open, and it's been televised. And I think you're bringing a lot of awareness to guys that, whenever you're younger, and I know young guys have a hard time starting out right now just because everything's so ridiculously expensive anymore, like buying a house now and all this stuff. And like I said earlier, you can get old crotch rocket for pretty cheap. You really don't even need a garage. I mean, I used to keep mine in the house. I used to keep mine in an apartment that I rented inside. I mean, it's, it was in a side room for a long time, but you need so much less room. You got to do your maintenance, but I have to imagine if you filled the tank up before you showed up to race, you'd probably be fine. You don't need fuel jugs probably. Like what's your in between rounds? What do you do in between rounds? Like, for example, most like my stuff, you come back, obviously cool everything down. That's going to be a same thing, but like, you don't have to plug in a battery charger. You don't have to fill it up. You just kind of review the time slip, look at the wind. I'm sure that's a primary problem for you, is if there's wind. Like, what does in between rounds look like? You just won first round. What are you doing?
Yeah, so for me, I plug into a charger. I run lithium batteries and stuff like that. And so with not a dramatic amount of run time, the bike being on much, and then activating the magnet and activating two-step and all of those things, shifting on air, it can wear those things out. And you're talking about, total from starting it up to pull into the burnout box, make your lick, and then be back at the trailer. You're talking total of 3 minutes, if that, right? And so depending on where you're racing. So I put them on stands, I charge them, I cool them. Lately, like I've been sharpening my program. Obviously, that's kind of probably why I'm here. I've been sticking to riding one motorcycle, not, trying to jump on two different ones and run two different classes. I've been trying to perfect one. So now, I pay attention to the amount of fuel that I put in there. I really, really, really pay attention to tire pressure. That's my delay box. Front tire pressure is a big deal for me. Rear tire pressure is a big deal, how the bike reacts. So I do the cooling and fueling and charging and all the above, just like anybody else, and actually sometimes I probably do more. I pit with a lot of guys that race those cars, and sometimes I feel like I'm doing more than they are, but it's a different animal. It's just on a smaller scale, but all competitively, it's all the same. We're all trying to execute what we do and be precise and be relentless at whatever it is you're getting on or getting in. That's the trick to it.
I heard that, man, and definitely this is definitely very informational. But Casey and I both, I mean, shoot, I've known Casey my entire life, but when we reacquainted in college, I'm riding my motorcycle to go meet up with Casey. He comes flying by me on the tank of his doggone motorcycle with his legs spread out, and just does a wheelie right on top of my head like this here. Okay, and we proceeded to drive pretty fast up and down the interstate that day. Ain't no cops watching, I don't think, but that was a long time ago anyway. Guys, hang in there. We'll be right back. We're going to give our marketing partners a few seconds of your time to let you know what they have for you. Don't go anywhere. Hit the like and share button. Subscribe. Don't miss another show. Be right back after these messages. That sounded real professional, didn't it, Casey?
Yeah.
That sounded pretty good.
But which one of y'all was I was going to say? Yeah, all right, be back.
Unleash your horsepower with Proform Super Street aluminum roller rockers. Utilize the latest cutting-edge manufacturing and design processes. The dual contoured body design allows for more rigidity with a greater strength-to-weight ratio, increasing engine power. Super Street aluminum roller rockers are available for a variety of applications and specs for Chevy, GM, and Ford, including pedestal mount, as well as a Chrysler shaft mount style rockers. On the strip or the street, Proform has you covered.
BRG Motorsports 3D printed racing parts are able to provide you with whatever you desire to enhance your drag racing operation. Items like safety belt magnets, nitrous bottle holders, and even quick release delay box mounts are able to be obtained from BRG Motorsports 3D printed racing parts. Have a look at top-selling items such as helmet hooks and steering wheel hooks, which are proven to make it easier to maneuver throughout your race car. You can contact BRG Motorsports 3D printed racing parts at telephone number 765-729-1177.
Proform wedge locking header bolts are the last set of header bolts you'll ever need. Each bolt comes pre-assembled with a pair of special locking washers. Wedge locking header bolts are manufactured with grade 8 steel and come in 1 inch and 3/4 inch lengths.
All right. Welcome back. Going Bracket Racing, episode 209, featuring that drag bike dude, that one bad man on 2 wheels with a chicken wing, Casey Baugh. Thanks to everybody who watches the show and joins in and chimes in the chat and sharing this out to your family and friends. GBR, we can't do it without you, the community. Special shout out to all our marketing partners, Proform Parts, Gearhead Solutions. I think I seen you on the Facebook side just a second ago. Welcome to the show. Syntex Printing, Driven Racing Oil, Ken Jones Performance, Crew Chief Pro, Team 14 Motorsports, BRG 3D printed parts, Midstate Dragway, 8th Mile Apparel if you want to get you some merch, TSR Racing Products for anybody who needs anything for their transmission. Casey, I don't know if you can shop at TSR. We might have to give them a call, see if maybe you can get some stuff from TSR. That would
make some motorcycle clutches.
Right, Mr. Ball's out. Back to the show, Casey. Bah, dog, that's hard. Anyway, so one thing I've always wondered, as a motorcycle rider, coming into these larger events, Casey, you're running against dragsters, you're running against other door cars, you might even sometimes run against a motorcycle. Give me your thought process when you look into the other side of the burnout box and see either a door car or a dragster. Does your perspective of the race change, or are you doing the same thing?
Yeah, so, without disclosing too much, right?
Right, yeah.
This
We're still bracket racing here.
Yeah, don't give up all your secrets, man.
I'm not biased, man. A big deal for all of us is you got to run your own race, right? So, I don't really care who I line up against, delay box, no delay box, 440s, 640s, whatever it is. Most of the time, my plan usually stays the same. I try to tell myself, hey, be good up front and get down there and make some decisions, and generally I try to dial honest for the most part. But, if I have someone who's going to be close to me and I need to change some things up, like the rest of us, I will. And, the only thing is, whenever you race those dragsters or, whatever, really fast cars, pretty much anything from, 530 or 520 and below, it's a little tougher to judge, right? And I think that's for anybody. But, so your plan can sometimes change, but whenever you know what you're doing and you're confident in what your machine's doing, 9 times out of 10, man, I'm usually not worried about who I'm lined up against. I have in the past, and obviously this just comes with experience, fellas. Like, I really kind of started towards the end of last year, kind of running these big ones, and I know these names, right? I've heard of Birch, I've heard of Hastings, I've heard of Daddis, all of these, Jake Clayton, all of these guys that are dogs. They run this stuff, and so I try not to think about who I'm lined up against. I more or less just look at how I need to race as far as ET and what the race is going to look like more than anything. Not so much about who I'm lining up against. So
I think that was the expected answer too, because that's all of us when it comes to especially bracket racing. I mean, you got to run your lane, and if you're trying to do anything different, playing right into the hands of the other of your opponent, because they're going to run their lane. So, great answer, man. Casey, what you got next? Casey.
Well, I wanted to ask. Obviously, everybody knows you want a dragster. So you have the opportunity to race four wheels now, whatever you want to call it. Did thought cross your mind? What's your plans with that?
Let me tell you how this crosses every motorcycle racer's mind. Is whenever you go out and you kind of have a bunk weekend and you're like, man, am I choosing the right machine? You know what I mean? It's like, but I know that, I race with some of the best racers in the country too. And there are times where we joke around. We're like, man, we're selling it all. We're getting out, just all the above. But really, the opportunity's been there to be on four wheels, right? I've had some people say that you should get in a car, if you're doing good on two wheels, just imagine, getting into a good program on four wheels, where you could go and the things you could do. But the thrill is two wheels, man. And that's my niche. And so as far as the dragster goes, I'm blessed. While every weekend didn't turn out how I wanted it to, right, to stack up, I just kept showing up, and I kept showing up and I kept busting my tail, and it ended up in my favor. Obviously there was some luck involved, but luck definitely showed up, but I did my part too, right? And so now I'm in a catch-22. It's like, man, I want a dragster. That's I've always had it like on my bucket list to win like a flicker race. I always tell like Madison and Johnny, like, I'm gonna be your first two-wheel winner. I tell CP the same thing. Like I want to be that guy. I tell TBs, those TB races, like I want to be your first two-wheel winner. And the deal is that's probably where I'll stay. I'm having pretty good thoughts on putting this dragster together entirely, maybe minus a motor, and making some decisions from there. But two wheels will probably never be out of my camp. And I don't even know if I want to indulge in four wheels, because I'm not sure what kind of, path that's going to open for me, where I'm like, you know what, this was too gravy. Like all I had to do was let go and hold on and, look a couple times and I'm going to get lazy or something. It's going to change my entire outlook on it. And so I'm like, maybe I should just keep doing what I'm doing,
Well, the one thing that I've always kind of thought about is that, people go out and they win these big events and they buy a new car or they buy a new something, most of the time when they buy a new car, they sell the old car, upgrade, quotes. They forget that they already won in what they had. There was nothing wrong with what they had. Like, let's just upgrade what we have, or let's freshen up what we have. But the thing that my mind always goes back to is Nick Hastings. And you notice that Nick Hastings has driven a lot of different stuff and he's owned different stuff, but he always wins in the T1000. And the other stuff, he doesn't do bad, but he doesn't win like he does in the T1000. It's just something with, there's always guys like, for my dad, it was his red Camaro, I feel like. For me, it was my black dragster. Hopefully it's going to be the Chevelle now. But it's like, whenever there's certain cars that mesh with certain people that you don't know why. Right now, for example, my Nova, I can't do anything really in it. Like, I mean, I've never been past, I don't think, 6th or 7th round in it, but the guy I got driving it right now he runnered up 3 races, he semi'd a race, and he just won last weekend. That's all this month. Like, and I'm telling him, I'm like, dude, I'm going to sell that car, like you should buy that,
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but I mean, it's just, but like I said, then you put me in it and I'm mediocre at best, it's, there's just certain things that, certain things just work out. No one knows why, and nobody would ever be as good as Nick Hastings in his T1000, even though it's the same car. No one's ever going to be as good as him in that car. Just like nobody's ever going to be, as well. Corey Letty doesn't count. You put Corey Letty in any dragster, he's going to win everything there is to win. But
I know, kid.
Too, considering what I just watched at the doggone fling in
yeah,
Bristol. I mean, he took it. It's there. So, yep. Pretty neat, man. So, a question, especially from two former motorcycle riders. Now, I know if I ask you again and you say yeah, and I jump on that bike, I'm not going to live much longer. My wife's going to kill me, right? So, I'm not doing that. But from a perspective of riding, I remember riding and going past cars or cars coming past me and that gust of wind coming off of or around the side of that car. And this is, mind you, I'm leading this conversation to what's going to come next. What is your thought process when a 440 dragster comes blowing past you, feeling wise? Does it feel different? Is there so much aerodynamics in it that you didn't even notice it? What's going on out there?
No, it's not making it over there, man. I mean, it's just a bunch of noise is all it is, really. But yeah, I've never felt any kind of, shock, wind, anything by a school bus could come by me at that fast, and I may feel something with that. But as far as a dragster, door car, or anything like that, you're not catching anything from that, especially in the 8th mile. Quarter mile racing, and I do agree with this. Most sanctioning bodies and everything like that, they don't put bikes and cars together in the quarter mile, which is fine with me. There's another 600 and something feet for things to happen, and a lot more mile an hour and stuff like that, and wind can affect you more at those speeds. And so the quarter mile racing against four wheels, no, but nothing affects you really in the 8th mile, and that's why this works. That's why this is, it's a good combination, and good that they let us do it. So.
Yep, I agree. Yeah, the question basically comes from, like you said, if it's a bus or a rig, a big 18-wheeler or something like that, and you're coming out and you're going around them, or it's coming head on to you on a street bike, man, you're going to feel that. You know what I mean? But like you said, the distance on the tracks, it's a good enough distance where I guess maybe one day some people might have to get out there and figure it out for themselves, but you don't feel anything. So I needed to know the answer to that. Casey, you got the next question.
Yeah, and this is something I know you feel very strongly about, or at least I perceive that you would. George and I have talked about this a lot. Not allowing bikes in all the big money races, because they pick and choose. It's certain ones allow it, certain don't. In my opinion, the few that I thought I saw you or somebody was commenting on, I didn't feel like you really got a good response other than kind of I said so type thing.
We can dive into that a little bit. Obviously, it's not sensitive for me. The only thing is I guess what sensitized me about it was how I found out, because I was loading up, getting ready to go make this bucket list race in Las Vegas. And, thank goodness I sent some messages out beforehand, because and even a wide spread of folks around me, other motorcycle guys that have been doing this for years, that all had the same thing as that being a bucket list race, had no idea that we couldn't attend them. And, the deal is I respect promoters and what their decisions are, in everything that they do, because that's not my lane, and I stay out of it. But, let's face the true facts here. The best races to run as a motorcycle competitor against the cars are the big shows. And the reason being is because everybody's tight. Everybody's on their game. The tracks are tight. They're at, super high ranked facilities, national event facilities. They are ran appropriately. You cite me any sanctioned event that had a motorcycle and a car tangle up, and I mean sanctioned event, and I'm talking like NHR and above, or a big money bracket race. not some Saturday night test and tune, not some Friday night special, anything. Like, cite me those problems, and then let's just look at the data. Look at the data and tell me, hey, we're not letting you do this because we're worried about this. Well, come on, man. Like, every race has potential problems, and every racer has, they know what the potential problems are. And so the deal is, whenever I go to a race, I'm not going somewhere. I'm not going to do no prep. I'm not going to race some guy who just pulled this car out of the garage because he built it. No, I'm going to race guys that do this for a living. I'm going to race guys that have $150,000 in a race car, and I'm going to take my machine that I've mastered, and that, I'm not going to run into a problem, God forbid, unless it's catastrophic, and I'm going to go compete against them, and that's why I'm totally comfortable in this space, and most of the guys in Texas are too, because that's what we do. We've been around. My family's been around. And I just think it's kind of comical, it's like, you have to look at it. And like I said, you have to respect it. But really, one of the responses was as well, we tried it once and we just didn't have a bunch show up. Well, it's not about that. You know what I'm saying? It's about the few that show up that bracket race. And what's bracket racing? Bring your tool.
Right.
Choose your weapon. Be precise. Be relentless, like we talked about, and execute and race. And so you don't need 20 motorcycles to be able to allow motorcycles. 9 times out of 10, whenever I go race these big money races, just like at the Million, there's over 800 entries, and there's one person on 2 wheels.
Right,
Mm-hmm.
right.
And so
it's not like in the reasoning, and this is my thought process when I think I heard that answer as the reasoning behind being, all right, we didn't get a lot of participation out of the motorcycles. Well, it's not like you have a separate class called Pro Bike that rolls
Right.
into the main event. No, if you're off the bottom, you run Pro. If you're off the top, well, you run Super Pro. It is what it is. And so that threw me a little bit, Casey. I ain't gonna lie, man, because I'm sitting here looking at it as, man, that's another entry into your race. He didn't say, hey, I'm going to run a motorcycle, give me half off because I got half the vehicle.
Well, it would be different too if they had that. That was the comment I was referring to, because I was like, man, I don't feel like that's an answer, because it's like you said, you're a respectful guy. If they would have just said, look, man, we don't do it because of this reason, I don't think it's safe, or or the insurance won't allow, or whatever the case, like, that's fine. That's fine. But the reason that they gave you, just not having enough participation, I was like, I don't feel like that's, first of all, what they believe. They could have just told you what they believe. You would have said, okay, I get it. It is what it is. But to say the participation level, that's like saying no car showed up for the foot brake 32. So I'm not going to have foot brake 32. We're all going to just race the one race. That makes sense in that scenario, but it's not a separate class.
Yeah. And, the reality of it is it's hard for me sometimes, because I have heard that it's like, oh, it's a safety concern, or it's a, insurance concern. But I start to look at it and I'm like, well, I race at national event tracks with other promoters, and I race against the cars. So, if you say it's an insurance thing, hey, there's nothing I can do about it. But, I don't know if some people don't take motorcycle racers serious, right? There's a handful out there in the country that people know their names and know that, they run a jam up program and things like that. And, we're kind of the redheaded stepchild, which is fine. But, being that we are making these waves and we're starting to show up, one of my really good friends, Jeremy England, plans on attending some of these bigger races with me, because we're welcome, not necessarily invited, but we're welcome to those. It's just to show them that, hey, we can come out here and do this too. We can be just as competitive, just as clean, just as respectful, and actually do some good here and there, and maybe it'll continue to grow our craft, and even if it came down to, we obviously, this comes up, dude, we talk about it in the motorcycle world, because we're not looking for special treatment. We just, we're just wanting to do what we do as racers. We don't want to form to what everybody else's craft is. We want to be able to take our machines and go and compete in what's called, a competition and just let us roll with it. But even if it came down to like, hey, absolutely, come race our races, but I want to see that you're licensed with NHRA, right? You get, please, we just ask that, because most of those tracks are NHRA or big money tracks, national event tracks. So make sure you're licensed with NHRA, carry a license with IHRA. Hey, do you have a life insurance policy on you? Can I ask you to make sure that you have that? Whatever, health insurance. Even if it came to that, I wouldn't mind one bit, just so we could be a part of it. And I'm pretty sure that most guys that are on two wheels that are serious about it too wouldn't question nothing. They would say, sure, if that's what you want, because 9 times out of 10, anybody with a decent program anyway doing this stuff has their ducks in a row. We might be missing 2 wheels and 4 cylinders, but our money spends the same, and I'll stand in line with a guy with $1 million racing operation, and I'll line up with him and we'll race all weekend long, and I'll see you at the next one. If I can't win this one, I'm going to show up at the next one. So,
yeah. And like you said, the whole spirit of bracket racing is based around race what you have. And we're all, you put somebody with $1 million setup and a show hauler and a brand new race tech or whatever over in this lane, and you put a guy with a minivan in the other lane, and they're supposed to be on the same playing field if they both have their programs together. And the one thing I always thought about, and I was just talking about George, or this with George this morning, because obviously we were going to talk about this topic. I said I could see a safety factor because, for example, my Chevelle, I'll go between 160, 170 mile an hour running up on you, blah, blah, blah. Point is, throw the parachutes at a shorter track, and it kind of drags me one way or the other. But now, as you were talking, I was sitting there thinking, I said, the reason I just was talking about a minivan was because I was like, well, technically that same minivan, depending on what they have on the flyer, I could be running up on him too, and I'd be running 100 mile an hour up on him.
Yep.
What's less dangerous about that? Because it's really not,
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean,
ask you, Casey Baugh, what type of draft did you feel? Because that's what I'm leading into the next question. Like, hey, and I know somebody always wants to say, well, it's a safety deal, but if you can run at St. Louis and you can't run at Vegas, then it's not necessarily a sanctioning body rule. It's preference at that point.
Right.
Both under the same sanctioning body. That doesn't take any type of a rocket science or an anesthesiologist to put you to sleep and wake you up to tell you, hey, these tracks are ran by NHRA. So that's what throws me a little bit. It's like, over here you can do it and you're no problem and have at it, but over here you can't. Come on, man. That's my my drawback.
And
dead horse,
Yeah. And for the record, I mean, like I said, we appreciate every, and I'm not just speaking for myself, I'm speaking for two wheels across the country, I promise you. We appreciate every promoter that allows us to, every track that allows us to do that, because especially here in Texas, if that wasn't a factor, you're talking about having to travel across the country in many different ways, to many different places for, $1,000 purses, $350 purses, and because we just don't have the volume of motorcycles down here. Who knows, man? That may change one day. I can't tell you how many people. I don't have a large following on Instagram, but I make a little noise on there, and I have young men and even older guys message me all the time on the Balls Out page, and they're talking about it. And there's people that I'm advising that are building motorcycles, doing all the above, and I hope to see it grow, because this is what I'm going to do. This is what my sons are going to do. This is the future for me is motorcycle bracket racing, as long as they allow it. And so, shout out to those promoters, freaking TB Promotions, man. I love those guys. Those guys, they put on such an event. It's incredible. And then the folks, man, being able to go to the million and be a part of that. And Jennifer messaged me and told me directly, like, hey, you're welcome. And that's huge for me, because that too was a bucket list race. And, being able to be there and be on that stage because they allowed that, you're talking about, making dreams come true. That's why you're in this, right? You could be a weekend warrior and you can set out some big goals, and being able to be a part of that that show and that program, dude, it just makes the fire burn more. And so, you know, I'm trying to pioneer and drag my feet through that path as deep as I can. And I hope that others follow me so that we do see more of it in the future, you know?
Yeah. I want to clarify my statement because it's getting asked about in the YouTube chat over here. The whole dragster tangling with a minivan thing just came up saying, Tom Worthington says, I feel like the minivan driver has a much better chance of surviving than on a bike. And to be honest with you, that's not actually 100% true, because that dragster coming up from behind is like a dagger going through that minivan. And the minivan driver's more than likely only going to have a helmet on, regular seatbelt, stuff like that. And what people don't realize is when you're going the same direction as someone else, like I had a lady run me over basically in a like sideswipe me on purpose because she was pissed off in a VW Bug. And at this point, I legitimately wasn't even doing anything wrong. The people in front of me pissed her off, and then she's just rammed into me. And honestly, getting away, the fact that you can fly off the bike, that saves you a lot of times getting away from it. Whereas that minivan driver is all self-contained in there. And with you going the same direction as someone else, the mile an hour difference doesn't really matter, because that's only, like, say you're going 120 and they're going 140. That's only a 20 mile an hour wreck going the same way. Like, yeah, you still got to stop on the ground going however fast you're going, but it's not like getting head on. You're not taking 30 and 30 equaling 60.
Yeah, man. I don't know. Just for me, I don't live in fear, right? You know, the unthinkable can happen at any time, right? I have 100% more likelihood of dying on the way to the racetrack, 100%, than I do getting hit at the racetrack on track racing against other sportsmen. 100%. And the deal is like I said, you know, hey, you choose to smoke, you choose to drink beer,
right.
You choose to get in the car and go to work in the morning. You know, for 13 years, I ran into burning buildings and worked in EMS in rough hoods. Like, you know, everybody has decisions, and we could all sit around and talk about, oh man, but this could happen. Then what? So we just limit ourselves to nothing, just existing in place? No, man.
You're old and you have no stories to talk about because your whole life was boring.
Yeah. And so, you know, we all know the risks that are out there. And I'm talking about those guys in dragsters have way more risk than I do on a motorcycle. Because I'm going to tell you something. You wreck a dragster, you're tangled up in there. You wreck a roadster, you're tangled up in there. You wreck a door car, you're tangled up in there if it catches on fire. If I go down on a motorcycle, I'm separating from the motorcycle. I'm going to skid, slide, roll a little bit, might break a wrist, couple fingers, and it's going to hurt a little bit. But I'm going to get up and 9 times out of 10 walk away. Especially with my setup, you know, don't get me wrong. Like I said, catastrophes can happen, but it's slim to none, and it's closer to none than anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Top Fuel Harleys, they crash them all the time. They fly off of them sitting up at the finish line all the time, and those are usually old guys too.
Yeah,
and they get up. So
yeah, we got Michael Matthews in here saying he's been racing the motorcycle in the car classes for 30 plus years, and he's never came close to getting hit. That's a long time, man, to be out there on 2 wheels. And because honestly, like you said, show me statistics of this being any different. And I don't think it's possible. I really don't think it's possible.
Well,
we'd already
if
if it were possible.
If they had a scenario where they said this is why, because this happened before, then it would make more sense. But like I said, the reason I brought that up was because I just didn't like the answer, because I feel like it wasn't the answer that was their reasoning. And I also feel like you're the type of guy, if they would have given you the truth, then you'd have said, okay, well, you know, I appreciate it, you know?
Yeah, man, that was a tough one to swallow, dude. Everybody, we all talk about it. There's not a time that I have been in a group of bracket racing motorcycle guys that we haven't talked about Vegas, you know, and that's every time. And so that one was on the list, dude. You know, I've been chasing these big ones, and, you know, I was like, man, I'm going to go, you know, I'm going to go and I'm going to take a shot at it and have some fun. But, you know, it is what it is. The deal is that there are plenty of other awesome folks that take my money and let me race. And like I said, my hat's off to them. TB folk, CP, bro, CP Racing Promotions. I love going to his events because he's got a whole weekend of no box and a whole weekend of top bowling. So whenever I talk to you about going to the racetrack and making as many laps as I can, that's the place, dude. And and there's the best of the best show up out there too. So I enjoy that. And
it's
just
St. Louis too. I'm
one of those things.
Keep going. My bad. Keep going.
It's just one of those things where if they do end up, opening the gates and letting two wheels show up, I promise you there will be some folks that show up. Mike Moore Jr., Dean Moore, two other incredible motorcycle racers. I know that they want to go to the million. And anybody around me, I'm going to try to influence them too if they're on two wheels. If they open that window, hey, show up. Even if you don't get in the big show up and race around it so you can have that experience, man. Just like the OG. It's incredible.
I'd have to imagine a major benefit that you guys would have as motorcycle racers is I can tell you right now that you could probably fit about 14 of your bikes in my trailer and get out to Vegas. And that's you'd just get a rental car. Then you get your minivan, Tom Worthington. Get your Tom.
100%. I can't tell you how many times I've heard about it. Alex Hughes out of around. He's somewhere around Ferris. I think he's around Ferris Ennis area. Same thing, man. They all used to load up. Mike Matthews, David Ball, Paul Holman, Dewey McGee, Don Romans. They put 10 bikes in a 24-foot, or a 28-foot trailer, and they would head to the Man Cup or to XDA, those big motorcycle organizations, and show up and have some fun and turn around and bring them on back.
Yep.
I do think that would be that's a very strong draw to the motorcycle side of things, is the fact that you don't need a lot of stuff, and you could have one guy buys a trailer, one guy has a truck already. I mean, you could even put some in the bed of the truck too, and you could all go and all have a good time and have a minimal investment and go have some fun and go racing and really see the country and go to some cool places.
That's a big deal, man. That's part of my edge, and that's part of what I love is, like I said, I could go buy me a big old trailer and stuff an S10, stuff a Chevy 2, stuff a dragster in it, and go do this. And it's completely doable. But man, like I said, I grew up on very, very humble beginnings, and I grew up around some of the best to do it on two wheels. And something that I valued for a long time was like, hey, dude, you show up with a consistent, inexpensive operation and you do good, you master it, the checks are going to clear and you're going to make money at doing this, and you're doing what you love. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a big deal. And everybody has that opportunity, right? You can go I feel like you can go buy some of these street cars these days and race sportsmen avidly and have fun doing it, and you don't have to have a whole lot invested in the situation. Yep. But don't get me wrong, like every racing operation, you can dive in. I'm building a Fuel Tech bike right now, and I've been trying to iron it out. And you can get deep. You can get very deep, but I'm not quite there yet with it, and I'm still trying to learn it. But, I want to try to get more competitive on the large circuit, and I think that this new bike will probably be the ticket because it updates me outside of pump gas and a stock ECU from, Suzuki out of Japan to potentially being competitive against these $150,000 dragsters and these guys that go weekend to weekend around the country. So,
well, and the simple fact that all of the information you're gathering, like you're kind of, there's 10 of you probably trying to gather that information with that bike, or even doing what you're doing on a bike to begin with. Because like I said, most of them, they're just trying to go as fast as possible. They don't even think about consistency. They're just like, I just want to get down there as fast as I possibly can and not blow everything up and not flip over backwards on the starting line. So just the simple fact of R&D, you have to do it all yourself.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and one thing I got to throw out there, too, because we're in the world of social media and TikTok, and, man, TSV Motorsports will show you something happening out there at Yellow Belly, man. I mean, every other weekend you can watch it on TikTok. Them boys out there, I don't know who taught y'all to ride, but, man, y'all got to do something different. I done seen about 10, 15 bikes flipped over out there. So,
Hey, yeah, I was going to say, we can't quote that for the safety factors, because what they do out there is very rogue. That's the jungle out there.
You can catch me out there. It looks fun to watch. Hey, it's fun to watch, TSV. Thank you for bringing it up. I enjoy watching you guys, act the fool out of yourselves. But hey, here nor there. Casey, this was fun. I don't know which one of y'all to talk to. Casey Baugh, balls out. Thanks for joining us, man. Been wanting to get you on this show for a while. And then you went and won a dragster, so I definitely had to knock on your door after that. Many burritos I think you didn't give me at the racetrack. It's you're always cooking up some breakfast, man. If you smell bacon in the air, Casey Beckmeyer, just head to Casey Baugh's trailer. You'll find out what it came from, man. I'm telling you.
Yep. If it's not breakfast burritos in the morning, usually me and Jake Howard are throwing down on some fajitas, wings, and steaks in the evening. So.
Oh, yeah.
We'll be flying. That's all I got to tell you. Guys, thanks for joining us again. Another episode of Going Bracket Racing here. Hey, be safe if you're out there racing this weekend, doing what we love to do. And we will see you guys maybe next Tuesday. I don't know. Casey, you need a break? Casey Beckmeyer, you need a break?
I don't know. Who are you talking to?
I'm talking.
We know the guy that's here with us doesn't need a break. He's always somewhere racing.
Right. Take it easy. Like and share. See you next time.